Hey guys, just a quick note before we jump into this week's episode of In Stride. In Stride is brought to you by Ride IQ. Ride IQ is a mobile app with hundreds of on-demand listen while you ride audio lessons taught by eventing, jumper, and dressage coaches. In other words, with Ride IQ, you can take a lesson from an incredible coach during any ride you'd like. No hauling and no scheduling. Whether you're looking to add structure to your rides or try new exercises or build confidence, Ride IQ can help. Membership is only $29.99 per month, and every membership automatically includes a 2-week free trial. Try it for yourself today by downloading the Ride IQ mobile app on iPhone or Android. On today's episode of In Stride, Sinead talks to international 5-star event rider Will Coleman. Will and his family moved to Virginia when he was 6 years old, and he got his first pony shortly after that, a Shetland named TJ. Will's dad was an avid fox hunter and horse person, and Will learned to ride in the hunt fields and the show jumping ring. To say Will's riding career got off to a strong start would be an understatement. In 2001, Will was the gold medalist at the North American Young Rider Championships. In 2003, with Fox in Flight, Will became the first and to date only U.S. athlete to win the Brabham 4-star long under 25 division in the UK. In 2004, he was USEA's Young Rider of the Year. Fast forward, and in 2012, Will and Twizzle finished 4th at the Kentucky 3-day event. Later that year, they represented the United States at the 2012 Olympics in London. In 2018, Will was back on the U.S. team for the World Equestrian Games at Tryon aboard Tight Lines. In recent years, Will has tallied up top results with Off the Record. The pair won the 2018 Great Meadow International 4-star short, the 2019 Jersey Fresh International 4-star short, and the 2021 Carolina International 4-star short. At the 2022 Kentucky 3-day event, Will finished in 7th on Dondante, his nearly 18-hand Irish sport horse gelding, and in 12th on Off the Record, both in the 5-star. Sinead and Will are talking about how he's maintained and built upon his early successes to become a top rider in the United States. We hope you enjoy this episode.
All right, everyone, welcome to the podcast. We have somehow managed to snag Will Coleman right off of your European tour, basically. And you've been home for what, 5 minutes? Five hours?
No, I've been home for a few days.
Yeah.
I'm back in the swing.
Back in the swing of things. What's the first thing you did when you got home?
I went to sleep. I got home really late. I think I was traveling for like 24 hours getting home. Our flights were. I didn't have any major delays or anything, but it was just a really long day of traveling. So, yeah, I collapsed. I got home about midnight and just went right to bed.
And that was that. And how long? I mean, you were gone almost a month, right?
Yeah, just about 4 weeks, almost a month. Yeah.
Dear Lord. Well, I want to get back to that trip, but for our listeners, I mean, people would have to be pretty much living under a rock not to know who you are or what you've been up to. But I want to back up to your history and where you came from and how you kind of got into this weird lifestyle that we're all part of. So you grew up in Charlottesville, correct? Virginia.
For the most part, yeah, Virginia. Kind of Charlottesville, Keswick area.
Yeah.
Kind of since I was 5-6 years old. That's basically where I called home.
Where were you before that? Where were you born?
I was born in New York.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I've been on this call for 2 minutes and I didn't even know that.
Yeah, my dad was working in the city,
Mm-hmm.
So I was born a New Yorker, and they moved to Long Island after I was born, and my dad commuted to the city and back 5-6 days a week, and I lived there in kind of Locust Valley area for about till I was kind of kindergarten age, and then we moved to Virginia, and that's kind of where we grew up, more or less. I mean, I don't have a ton of memories of New York, but Virginia played a much larger role in raising me, I guess.
And your dad has been an avid rider his whole life. Is that?
Well, he grew up on a little farm in a very small town in Southern Virginia called Martinsville. And I would say his experience riding as a kid was they rode like their farm horses. Like he didn't do any, I wouldn't say overly sophisticated horse training, but he went on a lot of trail rides and cowboyed around on a dirty old pony that I think was pretty horrible to him for the most part. But he, I think, for whatever reason, had a affinity with horses that he wanted to revisit later in life. And he was working in the city, and obviously riding horses there is difficult when you're living in New York City, but he was playing a lot of squash to stay in shape, and he blew out both his knees playing squash. So he had to find another way to exercise. And I don't know what drew him back to horses, but he started taking some riding lessons again and doing some dressage. And he sort of fell in love with it again, and you know, became sort of a very devoted amateur, I would say. But he was a very good rider, and he certainly imparted some of that sort of passion for the horses to us, to all of us. And I was sort of maybe stuck to me the most of my two brothers.
Was that when he was in New York? Did he start riding with Anne then because he was close to? Because New Jersey.
No, he didn't even jump then. He was
really?
he only did dressage, and there was a very good dressage trainer named Barbara Silverman who based out of like a big boarding barn there in Long Island, and Dad would go out there and ride a few days a week in the evenings after work, and he just kind of got progressively more and more into it. And then he was basically, he got, I think, to where he was, you know, nearly a Grand Prix dressage rider. He was doing, I think, Intermediate 1.
Wow.
And then he just kind of had some bad luck with like a horse getting injured. And he had one dressage horse that was just ended up being a little bit temperamentally too difficult for the dressage, but he loved to jump. So Dad started jumping the horse. And then he said, "Oh, maybe I'd like to try a little bit of jumping." And from that point on, he sort of kind of switched to doing show jumping. And but he was just, you know, I think just genuinely loved kind of horses and learning about horses, and whether it was dressage or jumping, he was, you know, kind of.
But your dad is like really good. I mean, when I think when people are listening, they're thinking like a normal adult amateur. I mean, your dad.
I don't want to give him a big head, Sinead. I don't know if he's going to listen to this podcast, but
it's me doing it.
You know, he was okay. Let's just say that he was okay.
I mean, because did he ride through? I mean, he's jumped some small Grand Prix and stuff like that, right? I mean, he's jumped some big.
He
stuff.
has, yeah, he has, and he did it on horses that, you know, many of them he kind of produced himself. He had some nice horses, but you know, in all honesty, I think he did a good job with them, and he had some help from good people. You know, the Guido Clata helped him find, you know, probably his two best horses, and really matched him well with those horses. And then you know, people like Anne and some other Paul Matthews gave him a lot of you know, great tutelage. So I think I think what I got from him the most was probably, you know, how to value good instruction. And, you know, he was good, and he was pretty accomplished as an amateur jumping rider, I would say. He had the respect of some of the pros for hanging with the you know, hotshot young kids there in Wellington. And then there's like this old guy on these giant horses that was trying to keep pace with, you know, at that time, some really good amateur riders that were on really, really nice horses. So I was always sort of quietly impressed with Dad, but
just never told him, and hopefully he doesn't listen to this.
No, not. Yeah, no, I had to make sure we kept his edge by constantly ribbing him, you know,
bringing him down. Yeah, and that normally helps that.
Yeah.
And then you have two brothers.
I do.
And they don't ride.
Yeah.
They're not riders.
No, we all rode as kids, mainly just fox hunted. We all liked to hunt, and we grew up in an area where, you know, there's a lot of hunting, and we did enjoy that and had ponies, and we're lucky to grow up on a farm where we could do stuff like that. And, most of our early riding sort of showing experience was like, hunter trials and local hunt club shows. And, we thought they were a big deal. They're, in hindsight, they weren't at all. But, we thought that they were, big time events. But they were fun and we enjoyed it. But when my brothers hit high school ages, I would say they sort of kind of just lost interest in the horses, really. And I was really kind of the only one that sort of kept a foot in it. And so they have real jobs, and I'm doing this. They have weekends and
what
paid vacations.
I know. Every now and then we get a Monday. There's a good day.
Yeah, occasionally. Sometimes.
But your family, like school and college and university was important. I mean, you went to university and did the horses at the same time. I remember, I think I met you when you were like 16, and I think you were doing kind of a little bit of everything, and then you tell us a little bit about school and how that played a factor in, managing both things.
Well, yeah, I kind of made a bargain. My parents wanted me to go to college and get a degree, even if I ended up deciding to do horses, which I did. And I think I took 3 years off out of high school and went to Middleburg, and I sort of lived and worked and just did horses for 3 years. And we were all there kind of around the same time. And I think for me, it was more about just seeing how immersing myself 100% in that sort of lifestyle, whether or not that appealed to me as a career option. Because I think, it's easy to love horses if you think you're going to go and, just do Olympic Games or big events and travel the world. And it all seems very glamorous, but it's a lot of work. And you have to really, really, really love horses for, I think, it to be a fulfilling lifestyle. And I think my dad sort of understood that. And he's the one who encouraged me to take, both my parents did. They encouraged me to take the time to actually see how much I liked it. And I think because they both secretly kind of knew how hard it is as a profession. But I did it, and I decided I liked it, but I still owed my parents that degree. So I went back to UVA. I deferred admission, and I was able to sort of finish it pretty quickly. So I was in school for about 2.5 years, and I loved being in school. I kept riding, but it broadens your horizons, and it teaches you a little bit about maybe about yourself. Kind of it takes a while, I think, to sort of mature as a human being, and sometimes going full throttle into horses can be a little bit of a whirlpool. So I think for me, it lent some perspective to what I was doing, and probably just gave me some necessary years of just growing up that I probably needed to go through before I was really ready to be a professional in any capacity.
And when you took the time off and you were in Middleburg, even when you went back to school, you were pretty sure you were ready to do that professionally, that was the way you were going to go?
Yeah, I was. I kind of, I knew I was going to come back to it. And I think and I think for most part, it was, as much as anything, it was competitive oriented. I still felt like I had a lot that I wanted to try to accomplish. And I think, you were young and sort of, I think still in many ways, I was very naive about how difficult it was going to be.
What was different between what you thought, even for the first 5 years or so, or 6 years of going back into it, when you picture what being a professional event rider is, even when you think, how did that vision play in your head? And then when you actually took that leap over that direction, how did that play out? How did you set that up?
Well, I think there's I think like for me, I was fortunate that I did a lot as a really young person. I went to my first 5-star at 19, and I did Bramham at 19 or 20, I can't remember, and Burley at 20, and Lemuelin at 21, and Kentucky a couple times by the time I was 21. And so you had done this sport at a very high level, very young, but I underestimated, I think, how much goes into then when those horses kind of moved on to a later stage of life, and you needed to go and then produce the next wave. Selecting the right horses, a training program in place to sort of really produce them and produce yourself to a level that stayed current with international eventing. I think on the training side of it, I was behind. I had some like riding skills, but I was missing a lot of the sort of maybe training scale things that were really going to allow me to be successful more consistently. And I think there was like a massive gap between that cluster of those 5-stars that I did early on, and then when I got to my next one, I mean, it was almost, I think, like I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
And I still think even when I got back to that level, even like 2011, 12, looking back on it now, I still feel like there's just a lot that you do differently now, and you kind of look back on yourself and you're like, wow, I could have done that a lot better back then. But I think it's just a really hard sport. There's just so much to know and so much to learn, and a lot of it is experience. And the riding technical skills, I think you can have a good chunk of those maybe at an early age, but the developing horses and training horses and preparing the horses, that's really the where you can separate yourself. And I think those skills I was very deficient in early, at that kind of early professional stages of my.
Well, I don't think I
career.
would say you were behind. I think that's probably, in it. It's hard to grow up in it, and especially like you more so than myself, because I feel like, you've been very much in the kind of system of the thing since you were quite young. And through all of those things, you're learning, you're growing, the people, your mentors are changing. And so trying to navigate your own space plus that space is difficult. And especially when it's on a little bit of a, a public platform, it makes you really, feel for professional athletes that are quite young, that go through some stuff when they're young, and they're on, at least our sport is small and not televised so much. When you look back at that and those different, evolutions, I guess, that you go through, how have you managed to, to evolve in a way that feels like where you are now? Your horses, again, looking from the outside, the horses are going fantastic. You've had some really strong results. You've got a wonderful family, 2 kids, you've got a lot going on. And you're seeming to manage it right now with a hell of a lot of grace and a lot of success. But I know that has been a struggle throughout the last little while. And how have you managed to allow yourself to kind of roll with that, like grow with that? It's kind of a loaded, big question.
Yeah. Well, I think, for starters, I would say that whatever it may look like from the outside, it's often on the inside, not quite as smooth sailing as you might think. I'm really lucky that I have the support of a really amazing woman in Katie, and she's my wife, but she's kind of my partner and everything, and I couldn't do anything without her. So I think she has been, maybe more than any other person, responsible for, I think, me being able to sort of reground myself and maybe kind of restart my career to a degree. We got married in 2017, and I think not 2017. We got married in 2014. But I was kind of building up a string of horses then, and we sort of I think got to sort of kind of recreate a collective identity for our program and our business and what we wanted to represent, and having somebody by your side. And you could probably say the same thing about, your and Tick's relationship in business, but when you have somebody by your side every day that is heavily involved and passionate about what you do, and you can sort of have that back and forth, that really healthy dialogue about how to improve, but how to sort of feel good about what you're doing in some ways, but how can you get better about what you're doing in some ways. That for me has, I think, been the foundation of everything positive that has come over the last few years. And it all starts with her, and just what she kind of, what we mean to each other, I think, in terms of, partners and spouses, but even as horse people.
Mm-hmm.
But the career thing is, I think, I think it took me a while to sort of allow myself to just kind of, I think, just focus on doing a good job with the horses, as good a job as I can, and not being so intent on feeling like I had to validate myself through my performances.
Mm-hmm.
That for me has been probably the biggest change, is not feeling like how I do at a Kentucky or at some big event is going to be this referendum on who I am as a athlete or a horse person or a rider. And as I've let go of some of that, I think some better riding and better horsemanship has come out. And I don't really know. I think you kind of have to hit like a bottom to sort of maybe realize some of that stuff. And, I think I hit a little bit of a bottom, and then I just kind of had to decide, not just how you wanted to sort of reorient yourself within your sport and within your craft, but also kind of evaluate what's going to actually make you enjoy this again, and enjoy kind of what you're doing. I think like I said, with Katie's involvement, and I think with a lot of other people, we have some owners and some coaches that have been pretty instrumental with a lot of our abilities to be better. And so it's a big umbrella of people that I could point to, but I think she would still probably deservedly get most of the credit.
Yeah, she's a pretty neat lady. I want to go back to that, because I really liked how you packaged that, like recreate and reorient. I can't even say that word. Reorientate within the sport, and hitting a place where you obviously weren't thrilled with what was going on. Now, was that a situation where there was where you recognized, where you're kind of waking up going, this is not what I want to be doing, or I'm not happy? Or was there a situation that you kind of felt like got you to that place where you thought, something's got to change, like something has to change?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think I noticed it more in the people that were around me, how I was becoming difficult to be around, just right. Nothing was ever good enough. And, you're just negative and sort of down on anything that wasn't just sort of unrealistically exceptional. Right. And not being able to recognize the positive ever was that's a really hard person to be around. And I was that person. And I worked like a dog. I thought the answer to everything was just more grinding. And I think, becoming a father sort of has actually helped me in some ways. For me, it was learning how to be a little more accepting and understand sort of what I could control and what I couldn't, and being willing to let go a lot of the stuff that I couldn't, and being okay with the fact that sometimes it just wasn't going to work out that great. And, I think when I really start to watch the sport and horse sports in general, but all sport, it's just amazing that there's a lot of losing that's a part of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of hard knocks, hard breaks, whatever. You can't let those sort of
Things
become
define
kind of the things that dominate your perspective of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I just started going back again and rereading The Inner Game of Tennis for like the second or third time,
Good
which
one.
which was a book you recommended to me. And I was like, I had more light. I was a chandelier. Like I had so many light bulbs going off when I was, reading that book. And it's even interesting now. It's been a year, or maybe a little bit more since the last time I picked it up. And it's like reading a new book, like I'm picking up on things that I wasn't ready to hear the first time. And so much of it is, like not having all of this judgmental, like good, bad. This is, defining everything that I do in the sport is, and this is how I'm reading it, how I'm hearing it. But what I do defines who I am, not like it doesn't matter, like it really doesn't matter. And it makes it so much more enjoyable. And I think it was yesterday I was riding and I was thinking, I go around I would say in the last several years, just getting a bit like, I need to be doing more. I need more horses. And on one hand I do, and that's a real fact. But on the other hand, I was like, is the whole point just to get back as fast as I can doing, getting back to the top level of the sport as fast as I can so I can get there, so I can prove something, and to whom and to what, like things will happen and it's when they happen. But yesterday I was teaching and I got back on and I've been riding a little bit, and I've just been enjoying working on the inner part of it, the inner game of what I'm doing. And it's incredibly satisfying. And I thought kind of the same thing that you said a second ago, like I can work on this and I can feel genuinely proud and maybe I shouldn't, but I feel genuinely good when I've kind of gotten through a situation or ridden through something and I've had like good muscle memory and I've judged it well. And it's just like, it's there. And, or there's a stressful situation and it doesn't feel stressful because it's not, and feeling that kind of ability to work on that side of the mastery feels really good. And it feels very real, and then it's like the outer game of all of it becomes less like, I just can't
important.
Be worrying about all that.
It's more irrelevant. Yeah, no, it's true. And I think at the heart of good performance, I think in any endeavor is like your ability to separate yourself from how the performance is going to be interpreted by others. And, I think setting realistic expectations that then you enjoy the challenge of trying to meet. And for me, that's also been good. I think sometimes for me, it's hardest to maintain that mentality when it's going really well, because you just end up wanting more and more, and you end up sort of almost, I think, then you start almost, it's without even thinking about it, you just become way more result and outcome oriented, and it can sort of infect you on a daily basis. And I don't mean that, obviously you have to be performance oriented in the sport, but your focus on staying, I think, present and being a little bit outcome oriented in each moment is more sort of how you need to be, instead of being focused on a placing or
a destination
like
all the time. Yeah. But it's almost like trying to find where, like, you've got to be able to get to that place and be in a performance mindset or performance point of view or performance training, and I was even, thinking about it the other day because you bring in Ian Woodhead for dressage. And he said, I took a couple of lessons with him after you guys so kindly invited us over. And some of the work that we did really, I mean, it just like took off on some stuff. It really made a huge difference. And I mean, I think I took like 3 lessons, but it really made a shift in my work. But then I will say I struggled a little bit with some of the pressure of it, because I thought this doesn't totally align with, what I know to be true in a lot of even the brain science of horses and how they learn and how they're motivated and how they, I'm like, this doesn't totally line up. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't all the time. And but the more I started thinking about it, I just thought, well, he's a performance coach. Like that is, he's not in the round pen making sure that this horse can handle the anxiety of life, or that I can, but like when I want to ride with somebody and really get a performance, it's my job to prepare before I go there and make sure I can handle it. And have the skill set to handle it. And the horse has a skill set to handle it. Because but his timing is excellent. His eye is excellent for performance. And it was a really, like, it took me probably 2 weeks to try and figure that out, if that makes sense. And then realizing that is the beauty of getting a little bit older, 25, and having some friends, like a different group of that community that to call for what, and having the confidence that you don't have to, like, everybody isn't for everything, like if I need to work on the performance side of things, then these are the people that you go to. And then there's your all around, there's your real support crew, the people that you really feel you can be very, very open and vulnerable and listen to feedback. Your Katie, like Tick, like, you're somebody that, different people that are in your life all the time. But then when you can start to categorize, like, I'm really having a behavior issue with this horse, we call this person over here, I need to work on some pressure and performance, is this person over here. So like being able to move in and out of those mindsets and keep the balance of it, especially in a competitive, like for you, you've been in what I imagine has been almost fully consumed performance for at least a month. I mean, you've been on a trip in the other side of, the world. And the whole expectation is performance, which is a lot. I mean, it's a long time to stay in that headspace. And like you said, especially if things are going well, which they were going pretty well. How do you feel about that? How did that feel, that length of time? And do you have to take a break from it or step back sometimes? Or is that where, how do you manage all sides of that? Because you're very, and I just know this from knowing you, is that I know you spend a whole lot of time thinking, reading, researching, watching, analyzing. So it's not like your brain ever really gets a break. So just shifting from mindset to mindset, like, how do you handle that? Another big question.
Well, I would say I try not to let my mindset change that much, depending on, like, I would say I try to have like I try to really simplify what I'm thinking about with each horse, going to the Mullen and going to Aachen, and some key things that I'm thinking about in terms of where this horse is in his training, or kind of, these are, I think, the keys for me to helping maybe this horse perform at his best. But I really try to not treat it any differently than I would a normal week at home or a normal event. And I really, now I think I have a lot more trust in, and I think our program and sort of what we've done with these horses to this point. And when I go there and I go to these events, I don't really feel like I need to go and try to do anything different or anything special, or I just have to be me and just kind of try to react well in the moment each day, because as we all know, we have all these ideas in our head of how things are going to go, and we have this plan for a warm up or this plan for X, Y, and Z, and then something happens on the day and your plan has to change for whatever reason. The horse comes out and he feels totally different than what you expected. Or before the show jumping at Aachen, Timmy was off the record, was so excited. I mean, he was literally the first couple jumps in the warm up. I mean, he was bolting at the jumps like he was a rank 4-year-old. And you have to just try to establish some communication with that horse. And for the most part, competition is just, how well you can communicate with your horse in the environment that you're presenting. Yeah. And so in that respect, I don't have, I would say I don't try to have like a different mindset performance wise to training wise. I kind of just want them to be extensions of
what you're
of
training
the same
is.
thing. Yeah. And I think that's maybe where I've gotten better mentally, is that I think I do a better job now of just staying in like a training sort of everyday mindset, no matter where I am. And I still have sort of lapses where I try too hard or get a little bit trying to force something. And I think I did that a bit in Kentucky this year. And I think there's been times over the last maybe 18 months where I could look at an event and say, I was trying a little bit too hard there to, and actually took away from the performance by doing that, So I think for me personally, I just have to be careful about just staying very even keel and not feeling like I need to, up the game. I just do the best I can with what I've got. And, that has served me well, I think, when I've been able to sort of maintain that thought process.
Throughout your career for the last, little while, was that part of the evolution? Was that part of the, the thing that you and Katie and your team really kind of started to focus on, that this has to become sustainable and enjoyable maybe at times? Was that something that you worked on?
Yeah, I would say it's maybe just something I've become more aware of.
Right.
And I think just being aware of it has made it easier to just to do it. But I think you can trust that sort of approach when you feel better about how you're training and approaching the horses. And I think that continues to evolve, hopefully in a good way. And I think that's maybe where more of my confidence is coming from, that I feel confident in how I'm preparing and training the horses better than I did maybe previously. And that's maybe where I'm devote most of my energy is just keep trying to be a better horse trainer and understand how to help the horses perform better instead of just pressuring them to perform better. And I think that's how we try to do it as a program. And that certainly, I think, would be what Katie would say as well. And I think I'm really interested in that. I think like when I talk to you and Tick, part of the reason I really enjoy talking to you and Tick is it sort of, you guys are thinking similarly about how to be better horse trainers and how to communicate more effectively with the horses. And I'm just really interested in that. I find it really fascinating. Different ways of approaching horses and different issues or whatever. And I don't have all the answers. I just enjoy looking for them.
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the nicest things. I was talking to one of the girls that works for us, and she's 18, 19. And she kind of came around and said, "Can I talk to you?" Yeah. And basically, she's just 18 or 19, and she's struggling because she's struggling managing her emotions, and she wants to be really good. And she's worried about how when she feels overwhelmed, it's affecting the horse, and she's working on this, that, and whatever. And I just was listening to her, and it was like, I can tell you it's going to be okay. But I can also tell you, I'm so glad I'm not in my 20s anymore. Like just listening to that, inner turmoil of wanting to be so good and trying so hard and working so hard and just trying to figure out who you are and what you're doing and all of that sort of thing. And I know when I was that age, I don't think I was around. I know I wasn't around anybody that just said, what you're feeling is completely normal. It's going to be okay. Like, you're going to be okay, but it might be a little while you kind of figure all this stuff out. And I think when I got into my 30s is when I finally kind of took a breath and realized, like, I enjoy learning. Like, I didn't go to university. I went straight into some working student programs and was definitely 120% sure that whatever success I had was exactly the value of who I was. And so when you do that, it's too hard to learn because it's so awful to fail, right? Like, it's just like so intense. And you just walk around very frustrated all the time. And same thing, like all the way probably, through 2012, 2013, like still sometimes having that like angst that just, almost like a nervous horse, like a horse that you've had for a while, and you go, well, that's just who they are. That's just who they are. And then when somebody comes in and says, that's not how that horse has to be, like, you can do a couple of things. You don't just have to accept that. And it was kind of, I just so feel very fortunate, similar to you, that there were a couple of people in my life, Tick being one of them, that said, this is just unnecessary. Like, you can explore some things and, figure out a different way to be. And then when I got down to it, I just enjoyed learning about horses and riding horses and figuring out why they do things. And I still am so interested, and it's such a nicer way to approach it, with more of like that childlike curiosity and interest. And it's cool if it goes wrong, because it just means there's more that you can figure out. And yeah, but I just, when I was talking to this poor kid, I was like, I just don't know if anybody does that in their 20s. Like, I don't know if that's part of their makeup. I mean, surely we've all met some, but I'm sure you guys are so good about that with your crew, because you guys have got a great group of young riders and upcoming people, of just supporting them through all that. And there's nothing better than having lived through it yourself and going, finding that line of, I can't tell you not to do that, because you're going to learn more if you do it that way and you make those little mistakes, but it's going to be okay. Like, as long as you keep an open mind with all of that, it's going to be okay.
Totally.
Yeah. And so you guys do, I mean, how does that work, as far as you guys have a handful of, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star riders working with you? How do you enjoy that? Is that something, the coaching part of it, that you like?
I think I'm enjoying it more and more. Yeah. We do. I think it's really hard to find enough balance, between focusing on you and focusing on them. I think that's one of the challenges of being, of trying to ride at a certain level and help people at a certain level at the same time. So I mean, we are a pretty small program, but for sure, I'm not the kind of person that wants to teach 25 people in group lessons. But I do enjoy helping people sort of individually, consistently, where I can feel like you're a part of their program, and are, I think, able to sort of lend guidance and advice along the way a little more effectively. And I do enjoy that. I really do. I like the strategizing and kind of I'm getting, I think, better at the coaching, but it's a different skill too. And I think some of my discoveries about myself have helped me as a coach a little bit, because you kind of sort of start to realize, when somebody maybe doesn't necessarily need to be when they don't need to be maybe made as aware of what they're doing wrong, and they need to be made more aware of what they're doing well, and sometimes vice versa. But I think the same thing should inform all of it, and it's just trying to help them communicate better with their horses. And you know, I think Katie and I both enjoy that part of it a lot, just because I think we genuinely like the horses.
Right. It's like a service for the horses. I remember a couple years ago, it was actually pretty interesting. Just to speak to that, our vet, Dr. Casanella, who is great. She's great, but she's a lot. And she's a big personality. And I remember talking to her about something, and she got so wound up about this horse and a client and whatnot. And I can't remember what I said, but I thought, I know this is the problem. Like with, you know, we're in a service industry, we work for people, and sometimes that requires a certain, you know, and she just looked me straight in the face. She goes, Sinead, I work for the horses. And I was like, that's actually quite profound. And you're right. And now I can kind of understand where your frustration comes from at times when dealing with people. And it's like teaching can be that way as well. And it's interesting that you say it that way, because it's like the motivation behind teaching, it sounds like on at your team, is for the relationship for the horses, right? For that part of it is to educate people more in a way so that the horses have a better experience and better communication. But I hang on to that a lot when I get a little bit like whatever about situations. I think, okay, like I work for these horses. Like I need to make sure that is the driving force. Well, last year I remember and the reason I asked about the coaching is that I remembered when you got back from Aachen after winning Aachen last year, which I can't believe it's been a year, that there was a lot of positive things said about how well you brought the team together and had a very strong leadership role in pulling everybody, just having good things to say and good course walks and a good camaraderie and that type of thing, which I hadn't really thought about it in that light before. But, you know, would you, like in the future, is there a coaching role on that scale? Because I understand the level, like there's a certain part of the high performance side that is a huge draw, and to work with elite horses and elite riders, is that something that would ever be on your radar? Because it seems like in a few situations lately, your leadership roles have really shined through, at least as the feedback from the people around you.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think in that case, at Aachen, you know, it was a really good group of kind of people and personalities, and I think it lent itself to just being a really, I think, good environment. And I think environment is important. I think at team competitions, just the feeling that you know, that you've got each other's back, and that you recognize that it's not a sport of guaranteed consistency, and things can go wrong. And again, just not operating in the, you know, you're not going to be at your best when you feel like the people closest to you are judging you harshly or unfairly. So I think in that case, I think the only thing, and I don't think I'd take zero credit for it. I think it was a communal thing. And I think, you know, I think everybody benefited from it, including me. You know, as far as, you know, a future in high performance on the coaching side, I haven't even given that any consideration. I enjoy horses and I enjoy the top level of the sport, but I have no idea where I'm going to be in 10 years or, and I think I'm focused on what I'm doing now, and I'm not, I don't have any kind of intentions or you know, sort of roadmaps that are pointing in that direction necessarily, but
not running for president anytime soon.
No, I definitely am not going to run for president. But no, I think you know, for the time being, I'm just trying to enjoy kind of finding ways to just keep challenging myself to get better, and that sort of personal growth as a horse person, as a rider, is that's fun. And I think that's sort of what you're talking about, that sort of childlike curiosity about what you're doing and how to do it. And it's driven, but it's healthy, and it's you know, positive, and you know, it's supposed to be fun. And I think like you, I enjoy learning, and I think the more I stay in that sort of headspace, I think the better I am. So that's what I'm doing, or trying to do. I'm not always successful at it, but I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's certainly an easier or a more pleasant, a healthier perspective to be in. So, and on that note, you know, you've been in this, you know, in the program for a while, and it feels okay right now. I mean, where do you think USA high performance is going? Are we on a good track? Do we have obviously we don't have a solid system in place right now, but it's taking time and space and sorting it out. What would your thoughts be on that?
I think there's a lot to be positive about. I think the more riders start just looking at themselves and saying, okay, this is where the standard is globally, and I've got to figure out how to meet that standard and not worry about, you know, what federation support or list or, you know, different kind of myriad ways of feeling recognized, you know, are making you feel like you're on the right path. I think like you have to figure out for yourself how you are going to finish a 5-star on a sub 25, because that's basically what it takes to win now.
Yeah.
And that should inform everything that you're doing. And horse selection, horse evaluation of what you currently have. You know, I think championships are a little bit different. They can be a little more variance in terms of what horses can be successful there. Like you saw Tokyo, you know, the horse that won Tokyo has not done a 5-star, but won very convincingly, and but with a very, very good rider, very, very good program. And the horse to me has been very, very, very well produced. So, you know, medal success and 5-star success are not necessarily the same things, but a lot of the same attributes go into both.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to figure that out for yourself. The federation, I think their role should be figuring out how to better support that process. And I don't think it's by, you know, one coach trying to tell everybody how to do it. But that's my opinion. I can tell you, I think for me, I think we've found, we feel like we're on a better trajectory, but I still feel like there's a lot of areas of deficiency that we need to address as well. Some of it is horse related, but some of it is, you know, different ways that our program can continue to get better. So
right.
That can't be defeating. You know, you've got to be you got to like the fact that there's room to improve and ways to different parts of the puzzle still to solve. And I think that's kind of where I am, is trying to enjoy the fact that I'm not quite good enough yet, and or that our program is not quite good enough yet, as in terms of those very, very, very high goals, and that's okay. That's what we're trying to do, and trying to figure out how to climb that ladder a little bit higher. But you know, I think there's a lot of reasons to be. I mean, we just had 2 in top 5 at Lemuelin, which is the first time I think that's happened in a while. We I think we've had some success going back to last year at a lot of international events. We had a rider win Maryland 5-star, Boyd.
We had 2 in the top 10 at Aachen.
We have more in the top 10 at Kentucky than, so there's things to celebrate.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of deficiencies too. And I don't think that's not armchair quarterback, and I include myself in that. But I think for me, the solutions are, there's enough resources out there for you to, I think, figure it out how for yourself you're going to get there, because everybody's different, where you are, where you live, who you're around. It can't be the same for everybody. And I think that, but the standard is the standard.
Yeah.
It's not going to get easier.
Yeah.
I mean, the sub 25 thing, I think that's here to stay. I just think there's that many good horses and good riders, or maybe not that many good horses, but there's a lot of good riders that have really good horses right now.
Yeah.
And that as sort of the spear has been pushed a little bit higher. And, a really good rider on just a decent horse is really doesn't have a chance now. You have to be a really good rider on a really good horse.
Yeah.
And, I think really good riders on average horses, they're competing for top tens now. They're not competing to win anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. It was, I was talking with Rebecca Howard, and we were kind of talking about England and the US. And, she just put it really plainly, which made a lot of sense to me. She goes, we just have so many, professional riders. She said in the States, which is correct, in the States, there are a lot of people that can't ride professionally because they're teaching and doing all these other things so that they can have the hobby. And the bar is not set by one or two people. It's set by 20, and they're all within this small vicinity. So you're just around it all the time. And that it painted a very clear picture for me. And then I recognized or realized that, like you said, there are these small growths, whereas maybe there was one horse or one rider in the last little bit that was able to kind of hit that bar, but we're slowly getting or get close to it. We're getting 3, 4, 5. And the more riders and combinations and people that we can ride around, that we can be around, that are going to be professional and consistent at that level, the bar is going to, and we see it more. And it doesn't need to happen overnight where there are 30, 40 combinations, like if there are 5, if there are 3 combinations that are, like you said, good horses, good riders that are in the top 10 for right now, or, hopefully a little bit more than that, it's going to keep elevating. It's going to keep our bar raising. Whereas I actually don't know if, previously we had more than even 1 or 2, and it just feels like that number is slowly starting to get a little bit bigger as people get more confident in their program and take on a little bit more of, whatever that thing is to keep getting better and to keep being better and to keep raising it and not just sit going, this is good enough for here. Right. This is good enough for now.
I think that's a really great point. And I think an invitation to the dance has often been sort of enough for, I think, a lot of us Americans to feel like we're riding at a level that's, elite internationally, whether you get put on a list or put on a team or whatever. And, I think I think that mindset, I think, needs to continue to evolve into being, okay, like, I don't want to just go to the dance. Like I want to actually threaten to win, or put myself in a place where my trending performance is, potentially a winning result. And, I do think that's starting to happen here, but I think we're in still the somewhat early stages of that. And, what comes out of this, eventing sort of overhaul, I think will hopefully sort of support that process on individual levels across the riders in this country in a good way. And I think there's reason to believe that can happen. But I think there's a lot to feel good about U.S. eventing for sure. But I think that I don't see anything to start, overly celebrating just yet.
Yeah. we wouldn't go there.
But
it does feel first, and it just is like you said, the consistency of some good results, where it's not, where you don't feel like there's this flash of something and then you get excited and we're all on the way and then you don't see anything for a while. There's a consistency and it's spread across a few combinations and a few riders, which makes it feel like then people can get there. And even, having these successes in the last little while, and there's still room for it. It wasn't this, some of the successes that we've had in the last little while, there were still things that could be improved. There were still mistakes and it was still within striking distance. There was still stuff there, which is exciting, right? Like that feels good. That feels like,
no question. I think there's one thing that, it is achievable. It's not impossible what we're trying to do. I think it is achievable. And I think, whether it's you figuring out how to go from a rail to no rails or from a 33 to a 29, really looking at that, going back to your inner game book, but, looking at that in a non-judgmental way and say, okay, like what are actually the real things that are preventing me from, is it that my horse doesn't walk well enough? Or is it something that I can change in the way that I approach certain movements, or even just how I train my horse week to week? Is my 10 seconds of time on the cross country because I'm inefficient, or because the horse is inefficient, or maybe could be fitter or whatever, so there's I think having the right people around you to help you kind of come to the right answers on those questions is a big part of what guides performance and training. And, that's probably what we lack here more than anything in this country, are people that actually can, I think, contribute to that discussion in ways that are actually genuinely helpful. But there's ways to get those, the right insights. And you just have to figure out for yourself who to turn to.
Those people are. Yeah. I think in order for, I know personally, in order for me to, and it's been a real growing thing for me, in order to feel safe enough, like safe is a big word, but whatever, to really assess things in a way that is real without the judgment, like it just is right in the middle. Like, this is the issue. Like, can we fix it? Because there's not in the group of, people that are out there doing it. I mean, from any level, people are working, they're working hard. And I think that's the thing that we keep coming back to, is that it's not about just working hard. It's working like real, like you can say working smart. For sure. For sure. But you have to have the feedback that's real, that it's like, this is actually what's happening. And it's not weighed down with defense or emotion, or like, I can't say that in this group, or I'll never get on this team or whatever. Like, that doesn't matter. It's like that will happen if all this other stuff is real and the feedback is real. And I think you're dead on there. It's finding the right people that you feel like you trust, that you really trust what they're saying, and that you're not going to have that knee-jerk kickback response, that it's genuine. And I think those people change, those people change throughout your career.
Sure.
About what you need and when. And then again, just being mature enough to know, I think that's been a really big thing for me, for sure, is being mature enough to know who to talk to when, and also being mature enough to know myself that, like, I'm not just going to talk to somebody because I know they're going to say what I want to hear, like that I'm going to get the actual thing.
That's important to be able to recognize too. Sometimes the people that make you feel the best, while they might be important to have in your life, you need sometimes people that are going to really give it to you kind of unfiltered. But it's such a hard sport sometimes to really identify how to improve, and it's a long game too, so something might take 18 months to really improve on a horse, and we want it to happen by the next event. So again, that's where sometimes adding pressure to that situation could make it go the other way. And that's being a horse person. And I think being sort of realistic in terms of how you analyze your results, but also how you set your expectations. And I think that's been important for me. I try to go into every event now with an expectation that has nothing to do with the result, but certain things about how I'm approaching a horse that I really want to try to stay true to and not deviate from. And to be honest, the thing that's helped me the most with that is golf.
Oh, really?
I started getting very into golf, and I think the mental side of that sport can be very similar to horses in a lot of ways. And my growing passion for golf is really sounds crazy, and it sounds like an evil ploy to just convince Katie that it's okay that I play more golf. And there's very little time to play golf anyways for us horse people. But what little spare time I have, I do genuinely enjoy the sport because I think it has helped sort of inform my mental approach in a good way.
So give me an example.
Well, I think, like, let's say, like what I was just talking about, like kind of being willing to commit to a certain way of approaching a horse at an event, and having that approach not be potentially affected by your hope of whether or not it's going to actually create a better result, right? But knowing that the long term, it's going to be the right way to maybe get a better end product from this horse. It's a lot like committing to a golf shot, and sometimes you can't worry about where the shot's going to go in order to really commit to hitting the shot. And I think for me as a perfectionist, golf is impossible to really be perfect at, and accepting some of the inconsistencies that naturally come with playing the game, and learning how to enjoy the game regardless, and get better at it, throughout all that is been really helpful to me with horses. And a lot of the same sort of tendencies that I have on the golf course, I can see them with the horses as well. So it's no question.
Like what?
Just mostly just like being a tortured perfectionist. But again, like a lot of times for me, it's been I notice on certain holes, like if I take myself out of the hole by hitting the drive out of bounds or hitting just a bad shot and getting stuck behind a tree where there's no chance of me making par. I notice that my focus tends to a little bit disintegrate without the kind of really great results still achievable.
Right.
I become less invested in the process, and I just a little bit check out mentally. And I would say that happens to me sometimes with the horses too, or used to a lot more, where when I didn't feel like I'd taken myself out of the competition, whether I had a bad jump round or whatever. I might lose sight of or lose a little bit of focus on the rest of it, and even the rest of a round. And so again, like figuring out how to stay, how to enjoy just being, present in each part of it is a lot of what makes you good at golf, and I think it's a lot of what makes you good at horses.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's funny. I don't know if it's out yet, but I did a podcast with Sharon White, and she started taking dance lessons, and she said it's been like crazy how much it's helped her, just in the sense of she had to learn to follow without always kind of being in the, like leading. She's like, I just had to learn to follow without any like technique. Like she's like, I can go dance this and that, whatever, and you can ask me how to do it. And I said, I have no idea. I'm just following, and she said it's really, really been a huge change for her in her riding in the last little while.
I could see that. I mean, golf, you have these, like dancing would be like, if you broke it down, it's very technical
Mm-hmm.
If you tried to, I mean, it can be, yeah, I'm sure it can be taught in different ways, but it's very technical. Like a golf swing, very technical, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I cannot think of it as technical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is just a very slippery slope for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so figuring out how to do this very technical, dynamic thing without being technical in my head is a really interesting process.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, and how to be like, have this perfect balance of being focused on what you're doing and not too focused on any one technical part of it is really interesting. And for me, recently in my horses, the coaches that I've really gravitated towards are completely untechnical in the way that they teach.
Mm-hmm.
It's feeling, it's sort of understanding really where the horse is, and that I think has helped unlock, I think, a better version of me as a rider. And I think it's been interesting that the same sort of processes have helped me with golf as well. And I read a ton of golf books now, and you know, it's just it's very. I recently took a personality test for golf. I listened to a podcast which talked about how your approach to the game should in part be guided by different personality traits that we all inherently have, right? Like we're all wired a little bit differently in terms of how we see things, particularly when you're approaching something athletic and maybe as technical as golf, right? But so it asked me this, like, I took a survey, it was like 50 to 100 questions, and like some of them were very golf specific questions, but it ended up generating this ID type for me on the golf course. And I think it was I can tell you the letters is INTP, which I think is intuitive. I can't remember what they all stand for, which is kind of embarrassing that I brought it up and I don't even remember what it was. But then it describes what your what those different things mean. And I sent it to Katie and I said, I just want you to be honest with me. Did you think this describes me? And she wrote back. She goes, "Oh my God, wow, that is you, 1,000%." And it was really interesting. And then I was talking to some owners of ours, the Rich and Roxanne Booth, who are, I think, two of my greatest supporters and two of the smartest people I think I've ever met. And they're very involved in athletics, and they're pretty in tune with different coaches at University of Virginia, which they live in Charlottesville. The former football coach at UVA, made every player that came, and he's sort of he wasn't a particularly successful coach at UVA, but he's a very good coach, very well-respected athletics coach. And he did improve UVA a lot, but he maybe didn't have as much success as he wanted. But he made every player that came into the program take a personality test, and they had to wear it. Yeah, they had to. It was identified on their practice gear in some way, and all the coaches had to be very familiar with different ways of teaching or approaching different concepts with these athletes based on maybe how they process information well, right? Some of them were going to be able to process a little bit more of the XOs of maybe whatever scheme they were running, and others were going to need it to be conceptualized in a different way. And it seems like a really simple thing, but certain people, when they're maybe learning something like golf or horses, they're going to need things to be broken down very technically, and they learn better like that. And other people need an entirely different approach. And you could probably match people up with coaching and coaching styles that would better suit them based on maybe some sort of idea of kind of how their personality and their sort of athletic wiring is. And it was interesting. So I've started reading a little bit more about it, but for sure, I think
it's so good. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it was cool. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like such a straightforward thing. I mean, we do that with the horses. I mean, I remember when I read it's just a traditional Chinese medicine book about the 5 different constitution of the horses. And I read it and I'm like, I've had every single one of these horses. Right. And if I had only known that this one needs to learn this way and this one, oh, that makes sense about this now, you know, like it takes all the frustration out of it, because you go, oh, I know how to do this right now.
Sure.
What works for that. That is so cool. It seems like a very straightforward, smart way to coach.
Well, I think we do it a lot more instinctively with the horses, probably. I mean, I can tell you there's certain horses that I know I have to be extremely black and white with sort of how I approach them, and the fairest way to be with them is actually just being kind of very clear and sort of understand and like to the point. And with them, I don't maybe ride them for as long in a training capacity. I try to be focused about what I'm going to accomplish, and then I want them to leave feeling very clear about what they did that day and that they did it well, you know. And other horses, you have to maybe dance around it a little bit more and sort of coax it out of them a little bit with a lot of compromise and maybe a lot of, you know, patience. And, you know, I think you get better with experience, kind of recognizing that in horses and understanding which ones are going to go and enjoy what they're doing the best with different approaches. But people are no different in that way. And I think sometimes in America, I feel like there's a little bit of a tendency to kind of have this like monochromatic view of everyone and how they're supposed to do it, or and I think you know, there's just so much to the sort of kind of wiring of people that I think can inform how they're going to process information, but also perform. And you know, that part of high performance, I don't think is. I don't know if you have any experience of that but I don't think that's really existed to this point. But
no, definitely not. But I think that's the part, right? Like you said it earlier, you know, you just have to be yourself. And I think half of that journey is figuring out who you are, you know, like, I mean, it's just, you know, I get up pretty early in the morning, and when it's quiet, which is like 5, because it's the only time it's quiet. And I've spent a lot of work in the last little while trying to figure out that part, you know, because it's amazing how most of the time the people around us know us way better. You know, like you send that personality to Katie, and you're like, "Is this who I am?" And she's like, "Yeah." And you're like, "What?
I know.
What is that?"
I know.
You know, and people just assume you know who you are.
Sure, but
you know,
I think, you know, we have ways of sort of you know, lying to ourselves and to be frank about it, you know, like, I
got that.
But I'm actually, we kind of want, because even like, you know, understanding that about someone makes it easier to sort of not just communicate with them, but work with them. And you know, I think we try to foster a real team environment here. And I talked about Haley and Aaron, who are the two kind of our 2 head girls, and they were both with me in Europe. And I was telling them about this personality golf type this test, and I said it's really interesting. Like they were like, well, describe, you know, who you are according to this, or who you are as a golfer according to this personality test. And I described it to them. They're like, wow, that's really accurate. And I was like, I know, right? It's crazy. And I said, what do you guys think about me coming up with, and I'm sure it wouldn't be a golf one, but like just a personality test for us all to take, because so many things in a team environment where you could have a better idea of, like, Haley and Aaron are very different people, and they're both exceptional at what they do, but they're extremely different about, I think, how they go about it, how they just think about things. You can just tell they have, and I bet, like, if you informed both of them a little bit of the other, and inform me and Katie and everybody else who works here, you get an idea of a little bit how everybody thinks about things. My guess is it would make everybody a little bit easier to understand and work with. And you know, these are things that corporations and different types of organizations are doing all the time. It's pretty simple to do, and it's just a way of sort of being a little bit more in tune with the people around you.
Totally. Well, and when you think about that, it's like some of the people that are the best coaches or the best bosses or the best, you can thread it through anything, best horsemen, best whatnot. They just have a real clear understanding of how to read the room, like who needs to be where, who needs to be in what situation to be the biggest, to be successful. And at the end of the day, that's how you want the yard to work. That's how you want the horses to go, is that the big picture is that, okay, we have to have this certain standard here. And this is what these are our principles. These are our goals or whatnot. And the problem is communication, and you get bogged down in this back and forth because you can be speaking the same language and not saying the same thing at all. And then it gets lost in there. Whereas if you can figure out how to communicate the thing that gets you to the bigger picture, like that's the whole point. Like, why wouldn't you do that? It makes complete sense. But totally. I know we've had that conversation here quite a few times. We've got a great group of girls right now, and individually we had some clashes, and I've had to go and say, and back up even myself and say, everybody, I do believe everyone here is great, and everybody wants to do their job well, and everybody wants these horses to be turned out well, and there to be this, certain standard. So what is happening? Like, what is happening?
Right.
I think that is, and it's exactly, you're dead on, because it's the way that people are perceiving how they're being spoken to, or picking up something different than somebody else meant. And it's like, that's not at all the deal. Like we have one girl that is just so awesome. But she's not an introverted person, but when things get stressful, she moves incredibly slow, like on a calendar, and that is just her. Like, that is the way that she needs a leg up. She doesn't, when that happens, she needs a little bit of a help, like a spark of motivation of something to get her moving. It's not that she's just getting a little overwhelmed, and so and the only reason I kind of figured that out, because it used to make me crazy, is that she's exactly like her horse, and her horse does the exact same thing. And you can like kick that horse until it's blue in the face, and it just goes slower. It'll stand still and not move, and at the same time, it's like, frozen in time with anxiety. And so it's just so interesting. I think that when you come up with that list, with that personality test, you can make.
Well, I'm not going to come up with it. I'll tell you that right now. I'm sure that there's one out there somewhere.
Maybe the booth. I feel like this is something the booth could figure out.
They're there. I'm sure there's things out there that on the old internet machine you could pull up. I just thought it was interesting. It's
super interesting. Well, the last time I took a personality test was like in 17 magazine, or like YM.
Yeah,
Young and Modern.
I'm sure that really guided you through life.
I reference it. Never.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy taking those tests, I think.
We did it. Yeah.
All right. What is the biggest lesson a horse has taught you about yourself?
I think that for me, the biggest battle has always been, kind of trying to wrestle with perfectionism. And I think I've had a lot of horses that I think have taught me, valuable lessons of how to, how to overcome that a little bit. And like I said earlier, just kind of reorient how you focus and approach what you do. And probably, the horse most particular to that would be Tight Lance. He was definitely the one that I think the only way I was going to get anything good out of him was to let go of a lot of that. And I'm very appreciative of that horse for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. You did some amazing things with that horse. The last Kentucky? I was watching at home, and I remember just watching him go into the ring and stand right up, almost take a bow. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I think your warm-up had been pretty exciting, and then you jumped a clear round. It was very impressive. Pretty
well. I think he's a great horse, and he really taught me how to just meet a horse in the middle and kind of, like I said, just sort of focus on realistic expectations and really just enjoying the process of it all, as opposed to only thinking that the only way it's going to be fun is, a certain outcome. He's for sure. He's the he was a turning point for me, I think, as a horse person.
They all have their lessons. It's and it's often, that's the thing, you look back and you're like, well, that one taught me that and that one taught me that, and it's rarely linear. Do you have a favorite training or competition mantra you reference regularly?
I don't really. I don't, honestly. I think I try to, I wouldn't say I reference it regularly, but I try to stay humble about what I'm doing and understanding sort of just how hard a sport it is, and accepting that it's really difficult and enjoying that it's really difficult. And, I think the more I sort of just try to enjoy the challenge of whatever's in front of me, the better I have a chance of maybe meeting the challenge. So you can't get mad at the challenge. You got to sort of smile at it and enjoy it.
Kick it when it's not looking.
Mm.
Yeah. That is good. Is there a piece of advice someone gave you along the way that you still reference today?
To be honest, when we were in training camp for WEG in 2018, with Christian Landahl was doing the dressage kind of test, help, and that this was the time when Tight Lines was sort of being, he ended up going to WEG, obviously, but I had sort of really had a summer where I felt like the horse was just under way too much pressure, and I could just feel him sort of just crumbling. And before I went to camp, I had kind of sort of said, I need to just forget about the possibility that I might have to go do this WEG right now. And just try to start. You got to start sometime. I said, I just have to start trying to rebuild my relationship with this horse because it's a mess right now. And Christian really recognized it immediately. And just, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he basically kind of convinced me that it was okay to not really, to just sort of accept that I just had to do the kind of the best job I could with this horse right now, and not, just kind of a little bit just back off the horse a little and focus on just doing simple things as well as I could, and understand that I wasn't going to be able to really put together a great 5-star dressage test at the moment. And just, I think he just said a couple of things that I think have really just, I think, from that moment on, even though that WEG was sort of a disaster for a lot of reasons. But I really think that was, for me, like a very important week. And so I don't remember it. It's probably, I'm not really answering the question well, because I can't remember exactly what he said. But it was, I do remember specifically him having a very real impact on what I did going forward. And, I've actually thanked him for that since, when I've seen him.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? There's I was thinking about that today. I don't remember what I had been reading, but it's funny how there's certain people or something that you read or something that you hear, if you're paying attention, that give you these little permissions. It's like something you already know, but it, you knew, but it's like there's some things that just you along the way that give you these little permissions, and you just feel like that's the exact right thing I needed.
Sometimes it's just nice to know that someone kind of just understands what you're thinking or feeling, and someone that feels like understands your perspective is nice.
That's cool. What do you do? You might have already answered this. What do you do when you're seeking inspiration?
Honestly, I just try to put myself around the best people I could find horse-wise. Like for me, it often like at the end of the spring season, you feel a little drained, and you're kind of trying to get sort of reinvigorated or re-inspired, and that always sort of coincided with the Upperville Horse Show. For me, that'd be like the first. I often would go do some show jumping with horses when I'm not eventing. So I often took horses to Upperville, and you always had Joe Farr, just McLean, Fiat Manley, what's his name, Eric Navet, Rodrigo. So there was always sort of a reason. I think because Joe Farr just helped organize the horse show. There was always just a really, really top class group of riders for America. It was as good as it gets outside of Wellington, and that horse show, I'd always go and have not 4 or 5 horses. I'd have a lot of time to just sit by the warm up and watch Katie Prudhomme warm people up, or watch just watch Eric Navet coach and teach and ride, and they're just like they're kind of just artists, and I just being around that, or even just the trip I just did, it's like going to Aachen, or I think just really being around that very, very top level of any sport, but horses particularly. I just think you'd be dead to not be inspired from that.
Yeah, it's actually amazing, and I think that's one of the hardest things. Whenever I go to a competition like that or have time, like you have the time and you get to go watch something great, that it's finding those times to spend in that space is so, it's so great. I totally agree. Watching anyone do anything great is, or like you said, like it's like art. It's pretty amazing. All right, our last question. Have you had an experience or adversity separate from horses that you feel like has directly influenced you as a horseman?
I think I had an aunt that was killed crossing the street with her. She was crossing the street leaving church.
Oh my God.
With her son, and her son survived, broke his legs, but lived, and she unfortunately had massive head injuries that she ended up succumbing to, and she died. She was my mom's sister. And it sort of it really hammered home this idea that every day is sort of a gift. And, I think we really struggle, Katie and I know, with balance in our lives. And it's sort of impossible to not have horses dominate your life when you choose this profession. And we chose it very willingly. But I think within that sort of day, which is naturally going to be eaten up by horses a lot of the time, we just really want to try to enjoy the horses and enjoy what we're doing. And we constantly find ourselves maybe sweating the small stuff, but we try to maintain perspective and not let it take away from the fact that we're very, very lucky, and we really live a very blessed life. And we have 2 beautiful kids, and we are, at least from my standpoint, we're very happily married. You'll have to interview Katie to see if she has a different opinion, but that's the only thing is really just trying to enjoy this kind of weird life that we have.
Yeah. I mean, it's always I feel like it's a very healthy and respectful thing to do that. I remember like it, I mean, it was, I don't know why it stands out so much to me, but I remember I was I was living in Middleburg. So I was in my 20s at some point, and a friend died, and he wasn't a close friend, but it really shook me for some reason. Like he was just kind of part of the community, and we were similar ages. And I remember like just not really knowing what to do with it. Like I just didn't really know how to process that. And I think, most people don't until they have something like that happen. But I remember having a similar, even as a young person, I remember being at the gym and like running on the treadmill and just feeling like, okay, if the only thing I can do is just feel gratitude that I can run on this treadmill, then I'm going to run for 10 minutes longer than I want to today. Like I'm just going to, more so because I can, and like because I can do that. And I remember, and it's still, I had to have been 23, 24 or something, but I remember that and having that feeling through, since then, having lost some other people, like instead of getting sucked down into that, going, okay, if we're lucky enough or I'm fortunate enough to be here, and I'm going to try and do a good job and appreciate it. And, if I got legs to run on, I'm going to run. If I can ride these horses, I'm going to ride. If I have, I feel the same way about my marriage, and having kids, like it would be, I'm going to appreciate the fact that we're in these situations. So I think sometimes it's hard. It's hard on one hand when you lose somebody or something like that hits you, but I think it's such a healthy,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what I like to think. That's what they'd want you to take away from it, So
yeah. I like to think, that's what I laugh with Tay. I'm like, it's like, he's in one of, when you're in one of those conversations, he's like, if anything ever happened, I just could never, move on. I'm like, you better not, I'm like,
right.
I'm like, at least give it like 5 years or 10, maybe 40. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, haunt you.
Yeah.
But you can be happy. You could get a puppy.
That's right. Yeah. Plant a tree.
Yeah. Come on. We water it.
Come on. That's enough.
But anyway, well, this has been awesome. I so appreciate you taking the time and coming and chatting with us. I know we're taken away from the chaos that's probably the other side of the windows in your house.
No, I think it looks pretty tame in there at the moment. We'll see. But
how's my kid doing? they were watching a cartoon.
He's good. Yeah, no, you're all right if he's smoking, right?
I tell you what, role models these days.
No, he's good. I think they're I think they're building something. I can't tell what it is, but
probably bug house.
Yeah, bug house. Yeah, bug house. Looks like
I know. Brooks came home the other day and was saying something that about. Did you show him a bug or something? Because he was talking about he had to show Mr. Will his bug, some big bug, and check it was okay.
Yeah, there was a big cricket, grasshopper. Yeah,
I was very excited about it.
Yeah, it was big. I mean, it was a record of some kind. Yeah, it looked like a bird.
I love it when he brings those inside. All right. Well, awesome to talk to you. Get back to those kiddos and your awesome wife. And thanks so much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Sinead.
See you in a bit.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Before you go, I just want to let you know more about Ride IQ. At its core, Ride IQ gives everyone access to instruction from the best equestrian coaches in the world. It might sound impossible, but with Ride IQ, you get access to the private mobile app that has hundreds of on-demand, listen while you ride audio lessons taught by top riders and coaches in eventing, hunter jumpers, and dressage. Here's how it works. You look through the app and choose a lesson based on your horse or a skill you're working on. There are lessons for green off-the-track thoroughbreds and nervous horses and horses that are behind the leg, as well as lessons that teach every stage of skills like shoulder in or trot lengthenings. Then you tack up and press play, and you have a top coach like Doug Payne or Leslie Law or Gina Smith in your ear guiding you every step of the way. If you enjoyed today's episode, it is always appreciated if you can take a moment to share the podcast with your friends and family and leave a review on your podcast app. The best way to support the podcast is to become a Ride IQ member at ride-iq.com. And when you do, we hope you're excited to see that In Stride is just one of multiple podcast shows on the app, including hack chats, conversations with coaches, and more. And lastly, I wanted to let you know that our friends over at Major League Eventing also have a podcast. And if you enjoyed this show, I think you would also really enjoy their show. Just search for the Major League Eventing podcast in your podcast app and give it a listen.